In 1949, a party of big game hunters, following the course of the river Narmada in central India, chanced upon a young man in a state of deep meditation. He was surrounded by crocodiles. Stunned by the sight, they took a photograph, which was published the next day. In a few weeks, the man was installed to one of the highest spiritual positions in India. This is the extraordinary story of a man who could control the uncontrollable, a man of many facets and many roles, but above all, a man of indomitable faith in the divine nature of humanity. The Himalayas are known for being the highest mountains on earth. For those living around them, this region is also known as Devbhumi, the abode of the gods. This, for many, is a crossing place between the sacred and the secular. For several millennia, men and women of different faiths seeking spiritual awareness have been drawn to the crystal silence of these mountains. It was here in 1925 that Swami Rama was born to a learned Brahmin family of Uttar Pradesh, a northern state of India. From the very beginning, his life was an unusual one. His birth had been foretold by Babaji, a great sage of Bengal. Babaji initiated him into spiritual practices at the age of 3. Orphaned at a young age, the boy was raised by the sage in the cave monasteries of the Himalayas. By the age of 18, Swami Rama was trained in various schools of Indian philosophy. Under the guidance of Babaji, he underwent rigorous yogic disciplines. While at university in Allahabad, he invariably amazed his professors by his power of concentration and his spiritual wisdom. He traveled extensively along the path of the Himalayas, teaching Hindu and Buddhist scriptures in various monasteries. At 21, he journeyed to Tibet to meet with his Grand Master and to further his knowledge of yogic practices. In spite of deep knowledge of the scriptures and great expertise of yogic techniques, his master was aware that the young adept had yet to acquire dispassion and non-attachment. He instructed Swami Rama to travel the country and to undertake periods of intense meditation. It was at this stage that Swami Rama was sighted by hunters. The picture they took of him meditating amongst crocodiles came to the attention of Dr. Kurtkoti, the Shankaracharya of Karvipitham, who was looking for a successor. He sent scholars to observe this young, virtually unknown adept. Shortly thereafter, Swami Ram was installed to the position of Shankaracharya, one of the most regarded spiritual positions of the country. He was 24. Renamed Sadashiv Bharati, the young Shankaracharya lost little time in introducing significant social-religious reforms. He permitted the entry of untouchables into temples and abolished the age-old custom of Devdasis, women who were often forced to live in temples to serve priests in the name of God. But Sadashiv Bharati was not content. His position required him to lead a ritualistic and ostentatious life. For a free spirit, a man of truth, and a man of silence, it was increasingly stifling. With little time to meditate, he was teaching others what he himself could not practice. 3 years later, leaving the pomp and grandeur behind, he simply walked away. Back with his master in the Himalayas, Swami Rama spent many years intensifying his meditation. As he would recall later in his life, these mountains are so calm and serene that one is led to a spontaneous state of silence. Those residing in these mountains naturally become meditators. Following the instructions of his master, for 11 months he lived in complete isolation, in a cave with a tiny opening. His food was left outside. He cleansed his body through vigorous yogic techniques of pranayama. 11 months later, he emerged, a man with a purpose, with determination to serve humanity and to build a bridge between science and spirituality. Swami Rama began his task by studying Western philosophy and psychology at universities in Bangalore, Prayag and Varanasi. He completed a degree of Doctor of Homeopathic Medicine and Surgery at Darbhanga. He then travelled to Europe, where he continued his studies at several universities, including Oxford. He worked for a while as a medical consultant in London and assisted in parapsychological research in Moscow. He returned to India in 1966 and established a clinic and an ashram at Rishikesh on the banks of the Ganges. 2 years later, he journeyed to Japan. He met with the spiritual head of Sukyo Mahikari, Reverend Okada-san. Much to his surprise, when Swami Ram was introduced to him, Okada-san instantly embraced him and said, "I have been waiting for you. I hope you will help me learn the secret teachings of the Himalayan Masters." Swami Rama stayed in Japan for 6 months and taught various spiritual groups in Tokyo and Osaka. From Japan, he embarked upon another long journey, this time to the United States of America. Upon his arrival, he was invited by Dr. Elmer Green to the Menninger Foundation at Topeka, Kansas. Dr. Green was working on a project investigating the voluntary control of involuntary states. Swami Rama was to be the subject. The general scientific consensus at that time was that the human mind was capable of controlling only those bodily functions that lay in the realm of consciousness. Swami Rama was to prove them wrong. The experiments revealed astonishing results. Swami Rama demonstrated extraordinary control over his brain, heart, circulatory and nervous systems. He commanded his brain to produce theta and delta waves on demand. Delta waves are associated with deep sleep. Yet, he accurately recalled all that transpired in the room during that period. He produced different temperatures on adjacent areas of the palm of his hand, a 10-degree difference, by dilating one artery and constricting the other. He raised his heartbeat to 300 beats a minute, creating a condition known as atrial flutter, which stops the heart from pumping blood. He held it for 17 seconds, time enough to kill a man. In another demonstration, using mental power alone, he caused a 14-inch knitting needle mounted on a shaft 5 feet away to spin. Swami Rama was the first yogi to subject himself to modern scientific investigations. His demonstrations undoubtedly took the scientific community and others by storm.
Help me out. You're saying then that all of us have the capacity to control what we have heretofore thought of as the involuntary features of our body.
Right. But there are two sets of muscles. One is called voluntary and another is involuntary system.
Yeah.
So far, people think that involuntary system is not under our conscious control, but that's not true.
Our involuntary system can be controlled, you're saying?
Very easily.
Including our breathing?
Yeah.
Can I control my breathing without thinking about it?
No.
The experiments he participated in helped revolutionize scientific thinking regarding the relationship between body and mind, previously thought to be limited to voluntary processes. Reports of these demonstrations were documented in numerous leading scientific journals of the time. Owing to mounting interest, Swami Rama embarked upon a series of lectures. He explained that his work was based on a simple fact. Body, mind, soul and breath are interconnected. Yoga is a spiritual science that helps awaken one to the deeper dimensions of being. One thus achieves complete control over physical, biochemical, biological and psychological functions. He explained that power over the autonomic nervous system lies in the proper method of breathing. The first step was to observe one's breath. His simple explanations to complex phenomena, combined with his humility, won him many admirers. People from different walks of life regarded him as their teacher.